The movie My Son Hunter is a propaganda-laced, fear-mongering historical fiction centered around President Joe Biden's son Hunter and the corruption he was accused of during the infamous stolen laptop scandal ahead of Joe Biden's 2020 election, in which nothing that scandalous was found, but don't let that stop you, Republicans. And if we're to believe its prestigious director, aka one of the bad guys from the Goonies, then this is one movie that mainstream distributors don't want audiences to see. Luckily, audiences don't want to see it either, so at least the law of supply and demand is still intact, despite all of the nothing that was found on Hunter's laptop. As the first movie from the conservative news outlet Breitbart, this $2.5 million movie employs some of the most cutting-edge and innovative filmmaking techniques available for covering up an Eastern European accent.
Choose truth over facts.
We tried to call you, sir.
Are you okay?
That's right, they had to make this movie in Serbia to avoid disruption from the woke liberals, and more accurately, to get a 25% tax rebate and crew members who will work for less than half the salary. Take that, mainstream media, the American art of filmmaking wins again, with a little help from the American art of manipulating taxes and exploiting underpaid workers. Yes, some of the actors had their speaking voice replaced in post, while others in the past have had their whole characters replaced due to a racist post. That's right, the cast of this movie features several prominent victims of cancel culture. And honestly, in a satire about the toxic woke liberal media, who could possibly make better actors? Well, I mean, aside from better actors, but none of them believe in doing hard work anymore in exchange for getting paid in gas per diems and an IMDb credit. Whatever, bring in the Z-listers and get ready to own the libs with a red pill propaganda piece full of false facts from people who can't act, really long scenes of made-up meetings, and extreme caricatures of Hunter and Joe Biden that are so outrageously corrupt that they inadvertently feel like accurate depictions of the Trump family. It's time to destroy your laptop and delete your drug party photos for a conspiracy theory throwdown installment of Clip Breakdown. Hello, television viewers. My name is Nick. Thank you so much for joining me once again on my channel for another installment of Clip Breakdown. This is the playlist where we dive into our favorite movies, TV movies, and other such content here on the web, and we break into it like a laptop that someone forgot to pick up from Best Buy. So we can look at each individual clip and decide if it's an impeachable offense or just, you know, revisionist history. Ever since the trailer for this movie came out, I've had it on my radar because people want to see it without seeing it. And mama, I wish I was right there with you, but I had to see it. But before we get into it, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. I've got merch and a Patreon, and don't forget to subscribe for 2 new videos every week. I was able to pre-order this movie from Breitbart for $7 and then unsubscribe from their email list forever. And they give you like a free downloadable file, I guess because they want you to be able to like easily send it to your grandma. Well, I can't send this file to my grandma. She's dead. So you're my grandma, audience at home, and now I'm gonna show your dead faces this clip. Oof, slow down, Nicholas. The movie starts with an older man swimming in a pool while being watched by a security guard. The man gets out of the pool, and clearly it's supposed to be Joe Biden.
Thanks, I needed that.
This is not a true story, except for all the facts.
My God, Danny DeVito, I love your work!
Did you see how that statement from Agent Hound is so important that the filmmakers decide to reinforce it with on-screen text as though it's the gas mileage in a Nissan ad? If that insults your intelligence, then clearly this movie was not created for you. In fact, Breitbart has researched their target demographic and find that marketing messages and propaganda pieces work on them in very similar ways. In fact, when one of their far-right test audiences were asked, which documentaries influenced your opinion most on climate change, almost all of them immediately began describing the same infomercial for OxyClean. Quote, if global warming isn't a hoax, then how come things are actually getting colder every year? Such as my husband's attitude towards me and my diabetes fingers. I hate that they just spoon-fed us this message that on its face is like, oh, cool. So they're like winking, like, we can't say any of this is true because it's not reported by the true true news, who do true facts that are researched. Like, okay. Also, this Secret Service agent is basically stunt casting. I'll talk about it later, but she doesn't interact with the story at all. And the movie also doesn't know who is its star. We'll throw a couple options and see what sticks to the wall, starting with Grace, who we see at a protest. Ugh, protests. When have those worked in civil rights?
Got an orange man tweeting out of his ass. It's his supporters that are domestic terrorists and Nazis.
I think the question that everyone wants to know is, how are they all feeling?
Conservatives love to be like, oh, the liberal media cares way too much about feelings. We should go back to when the news just reported on facts without any emotion. Today, this is how many black people were murdered by police. This amount of women were viciously attacked. So-and-so's hate crime will go uninvestigated. It used to be like that for my whole entire life. And guess what? We never let it bother us in my whites-only gated community. The same old idiots who complain that the news is making people too sensitive are the first ones to become enraged and die of disappointment if the Today Show doesn't wish them a happy 80th birthday sponsored by Smuckers. Also, there's nothing more embarrassing than Republicans when they feel like they've come up with something smart. Around Black Lives Matter, a lot of racism jumped out of people's mouths. They'd be like, 2 windows at my favorite Dairy Queen were broken. I guess those peaceful protesters saying real peaceful. So peaceful, right? So peaceful, lighting fires in the trash. Like, first of all, congratulations on sort of grasping basic sarcasm, but the second half of your point implies that simply seeing a damaged Dairy Queen makes you an equal victim to the oppressed black people in this country. People on that side love to discredit the Black Lives Matter movement for creating civil unrest, although I think that people who have been persecuted by law enforcement since the beginning would argue that they've been experiencing civil unrest for all of time, since as long as this country has existed. But now that it's actually affecting your drive to Starbucks in the morning, acting like this is some new issue all of a sudden that no one cared about before is just really indicative of how much some of us people with white privilege are oblivious to it, as well as completely unwilling to understand or grasp the oppression and violence that Black, Indigenous, people of color have experienced in this country. But yeah, this whole news segment is like, it's mostly peaceful except for all the cannonballs. It's like, I'm seeing fireworks, and then they go to close up where these girls look like they're fighting in the Civil War.
These are mostly peaceful protests that show signs of hope and change for America. Up next, you won't believe what Donald Trump just tweeted.
You know what? So an empty Planet Fitness was set on fire. To me, that actually does sound kind of peaceful. Compared to a cop who kills a child for no reason and gets punished with a paid vacation, that sounds less peaceful to me. A non-fatal fire is much different than many, many murders. And conservatives would feel the same way if they were capable of putting themselves in another person's shoes. If they could empathize with people who don't look like them, which is not a skill that a lot of Americans have developed. I've talked to people who are like, the protests were way more trouble than they were worth. The businesses of people who weren't even white were getting destroyed, and just because I'm white, you destroy my business. Like, settle down, okay? Planet Fitness is a business with property insurance. So when you compare the loss of a building compared to the loss of a human being with loved ones whose lives will never be okay again, it just makes it clear how comfortable certain people are with dehumanizing members of other communities. So we shouldn't protest police brutality because you don't want your local big box store to like get looted, which, by the way, most Black Lives Matter protests were very peaceful. But what we'll see here is that Grace's friend is actually encouraging Grace not to post a video that shows that they are being accused of an unlawful assembly because she says it's gonna make the movement look bad. So the movie is accusing liberals of censoring the truth in order to push their message forward. And I just think, like, nobody's gotta do that because there are statistical numbers, but that's not what we're gonna talk about, okay?
You can't post that video, Grace.
Why not?
Because it'll make the protests look bad. It's bad optics. Most people are too ignorant to understand complex moral issues.
And complex oral issues, which is what the director was secretly calling your foreign accent. That's when they decided to hire a US voice actor to cover up your Serbian sound. The producers were probably like, so sorry, but we're making this movie for conspiracy theorists. So unfortunately, if they hear any sort of Eastern European accent, they instantly associate it with Russian propaganda and not low-budget pornography, like all of us. The correct answer. Many people aren't willing to make complex judgment. Like, what is this computer learn to type language voice? And then I got my first sense of this movie's attempted attempt at having a style.
Damn. I love that video though.
Ugh, please, the next time you break the fourth wall like that, wait until I'm standing close enough behind it that I get trapped under the rubble for at least another 84 minutes. As we saw here, Grace is a liberal who is starting to realize that her side might not be as truthful as she thinks. But the fact that she's talking to the camera is my greatest disappointment. This will look familiar if you know the sort of jokey, meta-narrative style of the director Adam McKay, who did movies like The Big Short and Vice. So it's very clear what sort of look and feel My Son Hunter is trying to create. And I mean really trying. Just trying so hard. This movie is trying harder than the weird girl who gets highlights for the first day of school. Her name is DiRamio, and I swear it just happened naturally from being at the beach like every day. In fact, this movie introduced me to such a new level of toxic and tragic type of trying that I'm actually starting to feel better about my attempted murder. Don't worry, I wasn't the victim. Actually, maybe I was. I can't remember if we're going with self-defense. I have to check the email. I'm just kidding. I am not a violent person. Politics suck. America, the whole system is f***ing stupid. So yeah, every politician is corrupt because they can make like tons of money based on what they do. So I don't know what to tell you, America. Figure it out. But while we're at it, let's follow Hunter, who is at a party. Party.
It's time to fucking party!
That's how Tim Cook gets ready to come out on stage and announce one update to the new iPhone. And I'm not telling anyone how to do drugs or whether it's a good idea for them, but it does seem like a bad idea to brush so much cocaine onto the floor. Oh, and then you see the director's name, Robert Davi. As I said, he was one of the guys in the Goonies, but also the sleazy club owner from iconic cult classic Showgirls, which we watched on my Patreon. You can go access that for $1. Let me refresh your memory.
You want to last longer than a week, you give me a job.
Oh my god, why does it take a full week to give him a job? Actually, no spoilers. I'm just kidding. I would rather not if he directed My Son Hunter. I know some people think that politics shouldn't matter when it comes to choosing a partner, but to me, it does matter. It's a matter of life or death. I'm just saying, if somebody condemns the Nazi party, but not the Proud Boys, then they probably also wash their dick, but not their asshole. Use your head. How could two things that are so close together not be equally disgusting? Okay, let me show another clip. Quite a strong style with the lighting, and this guy looks really familiar. He just swore he's high on coke and there's no piano. Those are the reasons I know this isn't a Coldplay music video. While we're here, one of the most upsetting parts of this movie is the title. Can we get a My Son, Hunter? Because every time I tried to stream this movie, I ended up on the login page for my.sonhunter.net, which is a dating site for gay men with daddy issues. And also the sponsor of today's video. I'm just kidding, it's a fake website that I made up, as well as this jingle to be used in radio advertisements. My son Hunter, find a daddy who loves hunting sons. Oh, hunt me, daddy, like a wounded animal, daddy. Follow my blood trail into the forest, daddy. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Some of that sounds a lot deeper than daddy issues. Like, why can't I stop buying domain names? So we jump into it all. Some sort of house of hedonism. Oh, like, you know, like a brothel, I suppose. There's strippers, and in this movie's universe, strippers are synonymous with sex workers, although it's not necessarily the case in real life. And Grace, our girl from the protest, she is getting ready in the mirror, and she's like, she talks to the camera again, and she's like, don't judge me. I'm doing it to pay off college loans. I was like, I wouldn't judge you even if you were doing this to pay for your Spotify. You can do whatever job you want. This stupid judgmental audience, Breitbart subscribers, they're the ones who are like, okay, but you just know we're very disappointed in you, young lady. I'm like, you can take that disappointment and shove it up your My Son Hunter. Take your disappointment up your Oh my god. Okay. So, have we come for gender identity yet in this movie? Oh, hold on to your pronouns, people.
For those of you who have not been here before, I'm Lorenzo. My pronouns are he, him to you, but she, her to your sister, and that way everyone's happy, aren't they?
I mean, I'm happy, and thank you. I'm glad you feel safe enough to share that with us. Although I think J.K. Rowling just locked herself in Frankenstein's laboratory with the corpse of Queen Elizabeth. She tweeted something about resurrecting colonial oppression. Honestly, her writing has become a little hard to get through, and now that I'm smarter than a 5th grader, the average 5th grader, okay? Not the smart ones who win spelling bees. So this is where Hunter meets Olivia, whatever, Sam, what's her name? Grace. And it's this kind of risky choice that doesn't pay off in the movie, that even though it's for conservatives, they spend the first half making Hunter Biden seem like a cool Scarface, drug-doing, woman lady killing woman lady. He's like an anti-hero, and clearly he does a lot of, what is it that straight people call it? Poon pounding? Oh, I'm the new live-action Little Mermaid. What is the word? Poon. I guess I knew that sex sells to audiences equally on both sides of the aisle. Although it does seem like the conservatives present their partial nudity in a way that still feels a little old-fashioned because of the many garter belts and metal buckles. That was the pilgrims aboard the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, just crawling with smallpox on their way to North America. Obviously, Grace is beautiful, but the movie makes it clear that she has a lot more to offer. For example, not many exotic dancers will put their fingers almost in their own butt crack on stage. And understandably so, because it is a lot. I also love when filmmakers clearly just told their actress to make up a pole dancing routine on the spot, as though it's something that every woman just instinctively knows, when it's actually a highly specific athletic skill that takes a lot of time and training to make it look truly fabulous. Hire a stunt woman. That's why she's wearing a mask, isn't she? Directors will hire an actress and then be like, so you have pole experience, right? It's like, I tried it once on a class trip to the firehouse, same as you. So Hunter and Gaga have this conversation at the Chateau Maman. Again, this is not a real character, Grace, to have existed, or is it? Yeah, no, I don't think so. See, like, what is that about? Who's Hunter Biden's actual wife? Is her name Grace? Anyway, Hunter invites everyone back to an after party at his house, and Grace goes. I don't think I understand why Grace is intrigued by him. He seems really troubled. I guess she's like, I can fix him. But, you know, he's a drug user. This whole movie is very triggering. If, you know, explicit drug use on screen is gonna be an issue for you, then don't watch the full movie. To me, it's just really upsetting how basically the right-wingers went after Hunter Biden and his addiction, which he covered in his own memoir. And people wanted to throw around, you know, photos of him using drugs or personal photos from the laptop. It's like, okay, or you don't have to do that because it has nothing to do with whether or not his dad should be president. Look at the Republicans who have had to come out and say, oh, this was because of this addiction, or I have a sex addiction, that's why I'm gay. It's like they say this crazy stuff and they get to go to rehab and then still win, but someone who's not even running has an open and honest struggle with addiction, especially to opioids, which is an epidemic in this country and could actually be used as a really powerful lesson and drive a lot of change. But yeah, no, it's a character smear. Oof, let me take a look. It's okay. I follow some doctors on TikTok. So arrhythmia is to be expected if he's using stimulants. But what I'm more concerned about is that the actual heart itself seems to be a cheap-looking 2D animation that drags the entire movie down. I first saw this in the 1970s. It was our first indication that grease is the word. Grease is the word. Oh, poor Rizzo. They drew her looking like 3 completely different people, and not one of them felt like the appropriate way to portray a teenager. Long neck sweater boobs, pleated skirt, no shirt, and worst of all, frog mirror diarrhea face. Like, if they had to draw Rizzo, why did they give her the immediate reaction she had to getting that false positive on her pregnancy test? Despite all the partying with 5 people moving around, their party is very small. Hunter is clearly a sad, sad person. And it's like, yeah, because addiction is sad. I get that this was supposed to be a raging hotel party, but something about people's positioning doesn't feel right. I just want to confirm, did the party end because it got hit by a train? Everyone looks like a mangled, no panties corpse. Shoes have flown off. I see the same bland variety of finger foods that come from an Amtrak cart. There are things in this movie that simply don't get an explanation. And if they're making references to superior films, I'm not aware of them. Like, what is this? Now, my wise mind is telling me that this is not one of the true facts that Madame Mandalorian promised us at the beginning. But then I doubt myself, because why would any writer fabricate a moment this random and confusing and poorly executed? Like, it would actually make more sense if Hunter Biden in real life knows how to communicate with animals using the free stock graphics on Adobe Premiere. Also, why is this super surreal scene deafeningly quiet? Like, not one single funky sound effect? And obviously we saw they had some sort of ADR session to record dialogue. They couldn't get that same actress to voice these lines, so I'm not forced to read an entire comic book in the middle of this movie. I thought the editor might have accidentally muted a track on the final cut. I was checking to see if my speakers were broken. Do you know how confusing it was to start questioning my reality because I could not hear what the dog was thinking? Like, that's gonna make it so difficult for me to know when I should or should not be stalking Jodie Foster. So thanks a lot, Joe Biden. Actually, I just talked for a really long time. I don't remember who I was mad at. Did I say to vote yet? This dog is, I guess, some sort of important character turning point for Hunter Biden in the movie, which, like, I wish it weren't, because it's not effective. But for whatever reason, this initiates the feeling of wanting to change, I suppose, in Hunter. And he's really stressed right now because of some big mistake that he doesn't want to let Grace know.
Do you know who I am?
They told me you were VIP, well connected to the government.
Well, my father, everything he built, his life, I just ruined it all.
Who could it be? You're connected to the government, that pesky British accent just jumped out, and you have a sense that you disappointed your father. Oh, it's Prince Harry after marrying someone of mixed race. I don't know why it's the year 2020 and Grace. I mean, I guess I wouldn't really know what Hunter Biden looks like at the beginning of the Biden presidency. Even now, I'm like, white with hair. Me? He looks just like me in that case. So he's distraught over disappointing his father. We don't know why yet. And he starts to open up to Grace. They, of course, have to incorporate some of the real life tragedies of the Biden family in order to make this stupid movie sort of work. But again, we're doing a lot of character development in a sympathetic way on a character who we are not supposed to like by the end of this.
My sister and my mommy died in a car accident when I was little. Dad remarried. She's my mom, not my mommy.
Ew. I'm sorry, that's really sad, but it also made me uncomfortable to hear you call someone mommy in a serious tone. And it's also not very clear, the distinction between mom and mommy. Maybe you could just call them, you know, like your stepmom and your dead mom. That way we can really formalize the concept of not saying mommy into adulthood. This movie is so boring. This is a long conversation. We're 20 minutes in right now. Oh, I've been talking for 6 days. So yeah, he then goes into talking about how his older brother died just a couple years before this. Again, referencing the real life death of Beau Biden, who died in 2015 of brain cancer. And Hunter then starts telling the story of his addiction. I'm like, this is giving so much backstory to Hunter Biden. You would think it's like a biography that he wasn't putting out or something. Like, it seems earnest, not like a smear piece. Because again, they want to like have it really surprise us and subvert expectations in the middle, but it did not pay off.
I did join the Naval Reserve. But I was thrown out on my first day for having too much cocaine in my blood.
That is so unfair. People are expected to, what, just guess the perfect amount of cocaine that the Navy wants them to do without going over, like The Price is Right? To me, that looks like another discrimination, a tactic against the gay community. More or less all gay people use cocaine. Or was it that all cocaine users are more or less gay? I don't know. Whatever. You can say it both ways. It means the same thing. Hunter then goes on to discuss that in in the grief of his brother's passing, he and his sister-in-law, Beau's widow, began having sex. And I'm just like, you know what? That's not that scandalous to me either. Over there in England, they've been f***ing their brothers and sisters since the days of old windmill time. How is that okay? There's one black person in this movie. It is Tyrone, Hunter Biden's security guard. He's always in the background smoking cigarettes.
Look, so you don't live up to your parents' image of perfection. You know, just because you don't live up to your father's image of perfection.
It's so weird that she keeps saying father's image of perfection, because that's the middle name that my dad gave my little brother. Still not as unique as the middle name he gave me, a father's image _ first draft. Hunter is just enjoying his chaotic swim when, Sally Sue, the Secret Service agent, comes in.
Can I help you? How did you get in here?
We're gonna need you to come with us, sir.
You just give me a little minute to freshen up and I'll be right with you.
Like father, like son.
That's also her philosophy when filling in her brows. That's why they look so asymmetrical. It's a generational difference. The right one is the baby and the left one is the daddy. Great, now you just need some false lashes and your brother's best man tuxedo and you're ready to hit the set. Like I love to do with these movies, I watched the full length of it over on my Patreon along with my subscribers over there. They get the full length reaction. And Beth G made the hilarious observation that Hunter jumps into this pool with a lit cigarette, adding, quote, "It really bothers me." I'm right there with you, Beth G. We don't need a swimming pool full of nasty cigarette liquid, okay, Hunter? There's already plenty of that in your mouth. Ugh, I hate that it sounds like I'm talking about actual Hunter Biden, who I don't want to insult like this movie is trying to. Oh, I know. Whenever I'm talking about this fictionalized version of Hunter Biden, I'll call him Son Hunter, as in my.sunhunter.net. What's next, Son Hunter? So he goes out to talk to these mysterious agents, and that's when we have the reveal of not being a reveal of a lifetime.
Dad. Huh?
Holy shit. My life just got a whole lot more interesting.
Listen, Grace, I don't disagree that up until now your life was probably pretty boring, but it's weak storytelling for nothing to happen for the first third of the movie's runtime, then have the main character directly inform the audience that things are about to get a whole lot more interesting, followed by an hour-long adventure where things get actually less interesting. What? My Son Hunter was developed by two conservative Irish filmmakers, Anne McElhinney and Phelim McAleer, both of whom had only made far-right documentaries up until this movie. Well, here's a little tip for your first attempt at far-right fiction. If the character is gonna tell us that things are getting more interesting from now on, it's usually your job as the writer to then provide some more interesting events. This isn't real life like those documentaries you made where you can just ask climate change deniers to explain how burning oil is secretly healthy for us. Then you can just hit record while the craziness escalates from there. It falls out of their mouth. You gotta make it up here. It seems like these writers were not equipped to write an interesting story. They said, "Phelim, I can't think of anything good to write. I'm gonna go take a shower right near." That's Irish. Need to clear my head from taking a shower. Shower. Anyway, sorry to Ireland for that impression. But Phelim, what is this movie? The scandal that this movie covers is centered heavily on digital privacy, which frankly, since we all do everything online, it's something that we all need to think about. And that's why I'm so excited that today's video is sponsored by Private Internet Access, the world's most transparent VPN provider. I need to use a VPN almost every day. And with over 30 million downloads, it's very easy to trust Private Internet Access. They have a no logs policy, which means they never even record personal data. Private Internet Access will hide your IP address and encrypt your internet connection. This helps hide your online activity from your internet service provider, as well as government censors and network administrators. But my favorite is how you can access the streaming libraries of other countries. Private Internet Access has servers in all 50 states and in countries all around the world, so you're always getting a fast connection. I love the show Fargo, but it's not on Netflix in the United States. So I use Private Internet Access to jump on over to Argentina and I can see all of the episodes I want. I feel safe knowing that the code is open source, so people can and have looked into it to ensure that it actually isn't recording data. Make sure you use the link in my description because that's gonna save you 82% on your private internet access. That's $2.11 a month, and you'll get 3 extra months free on top of that. It's so easy to sign up and use, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee with round-the-clock customer service. So use my link so you can feel safe in your internet doings as well, which is not what Son Hunter has done here. Grace finds out that Hunter is related to Joe Biden, and she immediately goes inside to investigate what is troubling this client of hers. Meanwhile, hold on to your panties because we got seriously a 14-minute conversation of Hunter and Joe Biden look-alike talking in the car. Everyone is some actor in this. That guy who plays Joe Biden was in the soap Dynasty. This British guy who's playing what's his name is a theater actor who raged against cancel culture, which got him canceled. And Hunter here reveals that what's bothering him is that he forgot to pick up his laptop from a repair shop, and after a certain amount of time, it legally became the owner, who was a Trump supporter, who turned in the laptop to the FBI, who started searching it for any incriminating evidence. And all of these theories jumped up that Biden was secretly enriching himself using his power from the Obama administration. Just gotta interrupt here by saying they did investigate this laptop, and there is not a whole lot of doubt anymore that it probably was or is a copy of Hunter Biden's actual laptop, but it didn't contain anything that was directly incriminating. There were empty file folders that could be extrapolated to mean there were secret files on there at one point about illegal dealings. But there are no actual files, there's no evidence, nothing that had any impact, obviously, on the 2020 election. And this movie is meant to disprove those simple facts, while also just trying to make fun of Joe Biden.
I want to know everything that's on that laptop that can ruin my erection.
Oh God, why does this feel like one of the direct-to-DVD Home Alone movies, but made for those old guys who will go to the grocery store and say the same creepy joke to every woman who works there? There are several times in this movie where they just make fun of Joe Biden's well-documented speech impediment. He was one of the 5 to 10% of children who have experienced stuttering at some point in their life, and 25% of children never grow out of it. I don't think Joe Biden is a perfect politician or president, but I do feel like it's inspiring to a lot of people to see him overcome a speech impediment that he's, he had to deal with since he was a child, all the way back in the late Carboniferous stage, 333 million years ago. And I think growing up back then is his excuse for this Obama era guffaw.
Not the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook.
What storybook, Joe? Huckleberry Finn? Because everything you just said sounded racist as fuck. Joe Biden later apologized and explained that he used the word clean because as a child, his mother would say that he was clean as a whistle. And that's why it's a very unusual thing to say about a grown adult who is looking to have you run as his vice president. Good God. The second Grace goes inside, she's struggling to find any news about the Biden scandal. Everything seems to be just loving Joe Biden. But Tyrone lets her know, like, you can't use the mainstream Google engine. She has to look where the real news is. That's the conservative news site.
I can't seem to find anything but positive stuff on the Bidens.
Because you're using Google and the mainstream media.
You sound like an alt-right white supremacist.
Yeah, Kitty. I'm the blackface of white supremacy.
I don't think this movie has earned enough credit for us to feel safe that he's saying that sarcastically. This is Nigerian soccer player Franklin Ayodele. I don't know anything about him, so I won't speculate as to why he would choose this movie for his acting debut. Sports don't seem like a super long-lasting career, so maybe it wasn't a choice. Anyway, him calling himself the blackface of white supremacist is making a direct reference to Melina Abdullah, a professor and former chair of Pan-African Studies at CSU LA. In 2021, there was a recall election and the Republican candidate leading the race was Larry Elder, with very controversial opinions on race. He is a black man, and Professor Abdullah said that, quote, Larry Elder is a blackface on white supremacy during a Labor Day campaign event for California Governor Gavin Newsom. Why would she say that? Let's just look at a clip.
What racism is real right
We
now.
live in a country that's got 330 million people. Roughly 8 to 10% of them believe Elvis is still alive. The racism that people talk about right now, in my opinion, is individual stuff. And I think it's insulting to people who have fought hard and died in the 50s and the 60s to get us to this point, to act like things are just the same.
Oh, and those are the same 8% of people who think Elvis is still alive? I understand what you're saying. Actually, no, the Elvis thing was a little out there. But you can't make too much sense when you're trying to convince Republican voters that their racist thoughts aren't racist. They're sitting at home like, great point, Larry! Like, really? Seeing a black person talk about Elvis on TV was all it took to absolve you of your white guilt? They're like, yes, although we would also like to see a soft shoe tap dance before we vote. I'm not gonna speak too much about Larry Elders because other people have made much more intelligent points about his kind of hypocritical views on the Black Lives Matter movement being a fraud and discrediting basically institutionalized racism simply because he wasn't a victim of it in his lifetime. All I'll say is I'm usually suspicious of people who are voting against the interests of their own social community. You know, like if I were to vote Republican or vote for someone who had anti-gay or anti-trans agendas, all because I'm like, oh, well, I think that, you know, we shouldn't call it marriage, or it should be called something, like, you hear that in the community a lot, and it's like, well, shut the up, because your other queer siblings are letting you know that their lives are being negatively affected by this type of law. So you either believe them or you don't. And if you don't believe them, why do you believe straight people more than your own queer communities who have been through similar experiences of heteronormative oppression? You know, it's like, you must really identify more or wish that you were straight, you know, which like could never be me. Anyway, this conversation is taking forever in the car.
You know, don't you take them and put them in the, you know, take them out and put them in the trash? But they're still available. Well, if you delete them, how could they still be available?
Wait, save some of this clever dialogue for the Seinfeld reboot that's coming to Peacock. What's the deal with deleting emails? I expect it to go in the trash. I don't want anyone else to see it. When I throw a dirty magazine in the trash can, I don't expect them to mail a copy to my accountant covered in what's the deal with that? That Seinfeld needs help. Also, you can see they're struggling to get through some of these lines. He's like, what, deleting emails? Anyway, back to this secret security agent who I think is committing treason.
We signed NDAs so I could go to prison for what I'm about to tell you. I could even get canceled. But I'm just a fictional character, so screw it.
Ugh. For those who don't know, this is actress and former MMA fighter Gina Carano. Although to me, she looks like her name should be Sarah. And for some reason, I mean that in a derogatory way. But don't worry if your name is actually Sarah. You're only acting like a Sarah if you're like the Sarah who was mean to me near the piñata at a 6th grade birthday party. That's when you're acting like such a Sarah. Anyway, Gina, the Sarah Carano, I think she thinks she's making a clever joke here because she considers herself to be a victim of cancel culture. She was fired from her Disney Plus show, The Mandalorian, for a social media post that basically compared people who don't like you for your conservative views to be the same as the Nazi Party who started to persecute Jewish people. That's not the same, sweetheart. You can't have a discriminatory political views and then get mad when the people you're discriminating against don't like that. You're putting up signs about it in the neighborhood. Like, it's not the same. She was also seen as transphobic because she jokingly put her pronouns on Twitter as beep bop boop. No, sweetie, pronouns are not just the awkward thing that your husband says to you instead of I love you too. The most, I think, hard to watch parts of this movie are when the dialogue is supposed to explain conspiracy theories that are already vastly overcomplicated, and they just use long-winded voiceover that truly leaves you wondering if words have any meaning at all. I'm not putting you through the whole thing. Watch.
Our story starts in the early
Corrupt
2000s.
Ukrainian president
Victor
Yanukovych. Ukraine money, $100 million of his assets, and that's Ivan Dolorevsky from entering the United
I've
States.
created an energy holding company.
Russia's invading Eastern Ukraine.
We'll be able to drill our asses off for natural gas without any penalty.
Joe Biden.
See, how did I know it would be his name at the end of all that bullshit? it. I can't believe that all the way back in the Obama presidency, Joe Biden something, and then had a secret whatever, which yada yada yada, Russian Hagrid here. They're basically trying to explain the very weird kind of line item points that support the conspiracy theory that Hunter Biden was in Russia, Ukraine, or whatever, getting money for doing whatever. When I first watched this on Patreon, you can see me being like, what? Do I not know anything about politics? Like, I've never heard of any of this. Who are these people? It's because it's all basically nonsense. I didn't read any news about it because real news didn't see it as news, which by the way is not because they're so biased. I think journalists always want to crack the story, but they have to use verifiable information. And if they don't have that, they won't write it.
Hunter had no experience with Ukraine, so why do you think Burisma hired him?
Girl, that look came off way too smug considering the visuals they have you green screened in front of right now. The director was like, so Gina, let me explain what the special effects are gonna look like. I actually don't have a storyboard. Just try to imagine that there are 3 ugly guys behind you, fucking doggy style in a lineup while screaming about Ukraine. And Gina was like, okay, got it. Capital One, what's in your wallet? She really thought she told us something special right there. And it's like, I can't hear you over the violent f***ing behind you. And also, I can't see you because you've got green cast on the inner glow of your face, which, come on, Serbia, you can't light a green screen properly. Also, in post, they could have done the color bleed thing, but this movie. This is Gina Carano's best, this is her high and mighty all this time. I doubt she had this many lines on The Mandalorian.
So I'll tell you what's going down.
Governor Joe Biden just joined the board of the Ukraine Energy Company Burisma, the same time VP Joe's appointment of President Obama in Ukraine. Hunter never actually went to Ukraine during all this, but that worked out for you.
3 weeks later, he was appointed to the board of Burisma.
Oh God, has it really been 3 weeks since you started talking? I see that your necktie is still on back order. That's too bad. The annoying part is this movie doesn't have bad cinematography, and if it were in service of a better story of any kind, even a slightly better story about the same topic, it would at least feel like it was worth being made. But again, they got their $2.5 million on a crowdfunding site because their cost of below the line, payroll and administrative and crew members, 40% cheaper than in America. And they were able to then save their biggest salaries for above the line, which is the cast, the talent, the director, who all get, a considerable more amount of that budget. So I'm impressed with how professional it all looks, but at the same time, it's like, the whole movie sucks.
Then the Ukrainian Justice Department was going to investigate Burisma until guess who intervened?
I really thought there was gonna be a musical number here. Actually, the whole cast and crew did as well. But then it came time to just shoot and they realized nobody had the skills necessary to organize anything more than a good old okay. And then they just go to It's Raining Money and Joe Biden's flicking the dollar. Like, what are you doing? But we're not done with the limo car conversation. It's only fucking 45 minutes into this movie.
Hello? No, I can't hear anyone. Dad, your phone is upside down.
I guess I'm confused. Is Joe Biden a master manipulator of the whole globe or a bumbling idiot who can't use an iPhone? I mean, I know you can be both, but he's not gonna be able to pull it off as well as Donald Trump did in the very last presidency. Well, sorry, Trump, but you can't win an Emmy for that role. So this, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden talking about the briefcase, saying what's on it, pictures of people doing drugs, and news about the Burma deal. Oh. What I think went most viral from the marketing of this movie was the flashback scene of the Joe Biden character really going in on Agent Hound here and the hair sniffing thing, which is, it looks crazy right now.
The shit we have to tolerate.
You heard it here first. Sexual harassment is just some shit you have to tolerate. It's the price you pay as a woman who chose to be born at any point in human history. Sure, maybe that's not fair, but I mean, you don't hear any of the men complaining about it. Why can't you just tolerate it more like they do? The whole character of Agent Hound harkens back to Tara Reid, no relation to the actress, who accused Biden of sexual assault back in 1993 when she was a staff assistant at his office. There are several other women who have given accounts of him committing some sort of harassment, whether it was kissing, hugging, or touching in a way that made them uncomfortable. And between that and, again, the problems with race that Biden has been really forgiven for a lot in his career, I'm very clear that Biden is not a perfect politician. I don't think he's as belligerently harmful as President Trump was. Not my President Trump was. Also, the hair sniffing thing is like something that was claimed to have made women uncomfortable in some of these allegations. And of course, Breitbart is like, and we'll use that as the hilarious gotcha moment, even though it wasn't hilarious to the people who suffered the incident. Anyway, back inside after Biden leaves, Grace is like admitting that she knows who he is and she read about the briefcase thing, but she's comforting him. She's very sympathetic. This is about her converting to being conservative because of Hunter Biden. And again, the movie really wanted us, I think, to be Team Hunter all the way up until Grace herself learned that he wasn't a hard partying Gatsby type. I didn't get that though. He looked pretty sad and chaotic from the beginning, and we knew he was Hunter because the movie is called My Son Hunter, and we saw Joe Biden for no reason at the beginning. Also, the main character keeps seeming to change. Was it from the point of view of Agent Hound? Yes, it was at the beginning. The title is My Son Hunter, which implies it's from the point of view of Joe Biden. Hunter should be the main character since it's about his life, but then it's through the eyes of Gina, Grace.
How do you know about the laptop? It's on the internet?
Don't worry. It's only on right-wing propaganda sites. Nobody reads those. It's for Russian disinformation.
White supremacists.
Okay, that looks like the worst back rub on earth. Why no grip strength, Grace? Must be those weird white supremacist inbred joints, right? The conservative self-owns are getting more and more egregious. She's saying only conservative news sites are reporting the laptop facts in this case. And she's trying to be like, good thing no one's reading it. Because everyone knows that conservative sites are just for conspiracy theorists and white supremacists. The Breitbart subscribers are at home like, yeah, right. I guess that makes me a white supremacist too. Like, well, you said it. I'm not gonna say it, but that is how your kids describe you ever since they went to college, so Hunter and Grace make love, and he says he loves her. So I'm like, okay, this is fast.
Usually I have to be high or do something with kinky video.
I can do kinky.
Ooh, hear that? That's how we know her kink is not properly blending eyeshadow, because she said it's something she can do. What is this, like, liberal blonde fantasy that they're trying to sell? They're like, she's a kinky liberal who might have kissed a girl when the Katy Perry song came on at a bar once. And these weirdo Republicans are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna touch my chode in the shower tonight. The words that came out of my mouth. Oh, can I say chode on YouTube? We're gonna find out. Hunter is really smitten with Grace, and he proposes.
It's not a ring, but it is my heart. Mine Nantucket.
She's like, oh, you're right. This is definitely not a ring. And that's because you ordered the ring custom and it's gonna take several weeks. Or you're really just giving me the dead brother picture instead, right? Okay, great. I don't know what is up anymore. Like, these scenes are useless. He yells at the guy from the hotel because they want to kick him out, I think to show that his money's running out. But it's like, even Grace isn't reacting well. She's like, oh, let a husband of mine abusing people.
We have to ask you to leave today.
What do you need?
I actually don't really need money.
Did that guy just brag to Hunter Biden about having a sugar daddy? That's everything. The whole movie is about him now. Grace asks some question about something, and he goes into this long-winded spiel about some more backyard dealings. I'm like, can't you just put a link to whatever Breitbart article he's reading out loud in the description of this piece of shit movie? Like, you know it's a conservative propaganda piece when they can't even creatively tell the story that they're trying to tell. They're like, okay, quick, read that Fox News article into the microphone.
In 2010, my dad was vice president to Obama. I went with him to meet prominent business officials.
Okay, he's clearly struggling to remember his lines, and that's allowing him to be upstaged by that bowl of reduced fat wheat thins. Who put that there? Who on the art department is adding chips and dip to every scene in this movie? Oh, I guess that does instantly indicate that they are Americans. That's the international calling card. Still, I think having no food on the floor next to them would be better than such a hilariously non-romantic food. Go for the sensual classics. Strawberries, chocolates, cherries, Truvada for prep. We're at the 1 hour mark, and it seems like they did not have a script after this.
This is Vice President, my father. Vice President Joe Biden, Vice President of the United States. My father.
Good news, cast. Today's scene, you'll be making up your own dialogue and direction. And I guess that's why they all chose to be saying and doing nothing. Look at Joe Biden's character there, just like no thoughts, no feelings, just a nylon cape, which is supposed to be making some sort of clever point about him feeling like a superhero. There are moments where they really try to add some flair and you're just like, baby, leave it to someone with some taste. Next, Hunter has a deal with China business owner and he takes a bribe.
I'm having a difficult time getting my daughter into a certain exclusive Manhattan private school.
And that Chinese official's name? Lori Loughlin. This dialogue is so suck. Exclusive Manhattan private school? Just say St. Judith in New York City or something, you know, like surely your viewers can muster the friction between two of their brain cells to understand what you're talking about without being taken out of the movie. Like, this is just so obvious. The dialogue is so obvious that it makes it all feel like a really desperate attempt at like writing a school play. At least we have the gorgeous visuals.
Patrick Hall will wire you $5 million for consulting fees. My way of saying thank you.
Listen, I'm sure the director wanted to get a close-up of the diamond that was being handed to Sun Hunter, but there was no time for a new camera setup, okay? They still had 90 minutes of uninterrupted and uninteresting talking to get through for some reason. And there were so many stock casino graphics that needed to be shown. But they're not gonna just leave the beautiful, gorgeous bribe diamond up to imagination. It's not the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. And besides, the director's use of Microsoft Word clip art is such a clean and elegant way of replacing actual cinematography, so live with it. At this point, Grace starts to realize that a lot of these deals were actually enabling foreign power to potentially harm the US.
You mean like weapons that could be used against America?
China's not our enemy. Come on, man. They're not bad folks.
Oh God, when did Joe Biden do one of those YouTube reviews on sex toys? And how did he veer so off topic that now he's talking about Chinese genocide? Oh, before I forget, the set dressing for this scene was graciously provided by construction paper and visible Scotch tape. Also, I think whoever painted the stars on that flag might need to start wearing glasses. They're a little sleepy. Mentioning the name of a certain company called Face or something. I think it's supposed to be Facebook. I don't know. A Chinese facial recognition company. And Grace suddenly is like, wait, I know that I was a dancer and I said I went to college, but not for anything apparently, but this is something I know expert levels of things about.
I told you my parents were missionaries to China. There are tens of millions of closed circuit cameras all throughout China. They helped sponsor some families to get asylum in the US.
Wait, what did I miss? How did the closed circuit cameras fit into that statement? If that was an ad read for the Ring video doorbell, I don't know how it got past the brand's approval. Usually they don't want it to be just a sudden bleak statement about living in a surveillance state. There's like usually a coupon code too. That line was clearly from a little bit later on and they just never caught the editing mistake because Grace in just a minute reveals that the facial recognition company that Biden is accused of supporting provided the technology to the Chinese government to use against the Uyghur population and other mostly Muslim ethnic groups. This is a real accusation of genocide against the Chinese government in the northwestern region of Xinjiang. So this part of the movie is not made up. Human rights organizations really do believe that China has detained more than 1 million Uyghurs against their will, and there could be a large network of supposed re-education camps, and they may have sent in thousands of Muslim people to prison terms. So as missionary, Grace says her parents were friends with a woman in China who was like an aunt to her and spoke out against the Chinese Communist Party. And that's when she was sent to one of these camps. And I think that's the part of the story where Grace is a little less confident telling us what happened.
Face++ has been used to hunt down Muslims and force them into concentration camps. This is the concentration camps.
You're right, this is the concentration camps. Is that like a new slang term for when something is bad? It's the concentration campiest. You know what? I tried it out, didn't feel right, never gonna say it again. This leads to a big argument. And it's also interesting that Grace basically makes it sound like she understands how it feels to be persecuted by the government because she had a babysitter who was persecuted by the Chinese government. Like, mama, you know a lot about this particular international affair to also not know who Hunter Biden is when you're sucking his So I'm just saying. This leads to a big fight. This is a conflict where basically Grace is realizing the liberal party that she loved so much, President George Jesus Biden, is not such a nice guy. Again, the genocide they're talking about is a real issue that needs to be investigated, but the claims that Joe Biden's unproven, speculated business deals are in any way supporting that effort is where they don't really explain the truth or just give any good facts or just defend your argument without just trying to deflect.
You had everything, Hunter, and you threw it all away.
I lost my Nantucket!
Okay, I know in this case you're talking about like the symbolism for your whole dead family. So would it be weird or cute if I made the Nantucket a signature cocktail option at our wedding? It's grapefruit juice, cranberry, and rum, if that makes a difference. What was your mom's favorite juice before she died? That's her. No, really, she's done. She's like, I thought I liked you. It's like, what did he do that was so redeeming at the beginning? At least if they kept the movie consistent with whose perspective it was from, we could see why she was drawn to him. At first, she didn't seem intrigued by him. She didn't seem impressed by his partying lifestyles. So I don't know. So she storms out, but first Tyrone is like, look at me. I record every conversation I've ever had. That means Grace has incriminating evidence on her recorder about Hunter Biden basically being like, oh yeah, we funded all those weapons of mass destruction, whatever he said. And that's when Grace finally calls her dad, who she mentioned once. She said he didn't like her decision to be a dancer in order to pay off her college. She's like, we don't even know why you went to college. But she didn't like him because he's a lawyer, but now she needs advice.
Dad,
Grace?
I know I haven't spoken to you in a long time, and what I'm gonna ask you will sound strange.
Ask me anything, sweetheart.
Did mom really fall that day at the Grand Canyon? Because my therapist helped me access a repressed memory and I swear to God I saw you push her. No, that ending would not jive with the hopeful soundtrack of this scene, which is like a knockoff version of one of those songs from the 2010s that were written to be in real estate commercials. We're gonna make this house a home. Hi-ya! There's like whip sounds all the time. Hi, Toasty, my baby girl. The dad basically is like, I would always do what's right in this situation. And it's like, when's the last time you spoke? They don't seem that estranged. But Grace is clearly conflicted. She's in the shower, feeling sad. She ignores Lorenzo's offer from the Biden administration to pay off her debt and give her hush money. So she's doing the right thing when she meets with a journalist at the New York Post.
Even if what you're saying is true, you think any news org is going to want to touch your Russian disinformation? But do you really think that Twitter, Facebook, Google are going to not ban it outright with their algorithms?
Ugh, those damn algorithms. But we still have to try, Orville Redenbacher. By the way, this is referencing Breitbart's, attack on Facebook and whatever, because the first time the New York Post article came out about the laptop scandal, it got flagged by Facebook as not reliable information, which made it algorithmically get less views and impressions, which basically Breitbart used, or all the conservatives used to be like, Facebook suppresses the truth. It's like, well, I mean, if the truth looked more like the truth, it wouldn't get automatically flagged by artificial intelligence as not having enough science to back it up, sister. And Grace has now gone public with this information smearing the Biden campaign. This all diverges a lot from reality, where obviously no incriminating recording of Joe Biden's son was made. No, the libs are canceling her. And just look at all of the ugly things that they're saying. I mean, what is this text style? A white serif font with thin blue stroke. Happy 4th of July, everyone. Looks like birthday candles. They couldn't even make the phrases pop on the screen at regular intervals, or maybe give me a sound effect to make it seem a little more intentional. But a light at the end of the tunnel just showed up. Hopefully it's a train. Ah, Nosferatu! Oh no, that's Rudy Giuliani, who, using his incredible lawyer skills, helps Grace get this case brought to everyone's attention. The mainstream media picks it up, and Joe Biden gets busted. Hunter Biden gets arrested, and ta-da!
The numbers do not lie. President Donald Trump has won re-election by a landslide.
Oh no, they've changed the past. Maybe there's a way we can revise history. They said that Trump won the election by a landslide. Is there any way we can lure him closer to that so he gets taken out by a natural disaster? Nice and clean that way. Now, the estranged father thing didn't feel like an important storyline this whole time, but apparently it's the one thing our liberal main character needed. In fact, the reason she was probably so liberal is because her dad wasn't complimenting her breasts enough like like Donald Trump.
Will the news media ever again care about facts and truth? Daddy? Or maybe in the end, the truth itself has become the fairy tale.
Wow, what a closing line. With an ending like that, everyone in the audience is going to be saying the same thing. Wait, what? Again, the actress on screen seems to think she just served the audience with that line, but the audience thinks she was reciting The Cat in the Hat. Such a weirdly earnest ending, and the father solution is so unearned. He didn't even get mentioned until the last 10 minutes. The writers are like, yeah, but at the beginning, she would use her body for sex, so obviously she didn't have a strong father presence in her life. Like, what? But all of that's over now because she just looked directly in the camera and said, in the end, maybe it's the magic ties that bind us, in the fairy realm that doth unto us as we would have in this glorious chamber. Like, you can't just say garbledy-gook and then this. Democracy saved, I guess. So what do you all think of my son Hunter? I know that if I named my son Hunter, I would also sell him out to the FBI. But let me know what you think about Breitbart's future in the movie business. I think we could do better. So talk about it below, but also give this video a big thumbs up if you wanna own the conservative media and make sure this video gets algorithmed up to the top of the hierarchy. And most importantly, if you're new to my channel, I would love to have you click that subscribe button, and that way you won't miss new videos from me. 2 new ones every week. Hit the notification bell icon because you don't wanna miss the very first seconds. Also, I've got merch available and a Patreon where we watch exclusive bonus episodes and have virtual watch parties. So much fun. And you might even see your comment in a video like this. You guys are all the greatest. Thank you for sharing your fluid pronouns with me, you woke snowflakes. You are all the greatest, and I will see you next time.